Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
All right, I am like way behind. I don't know how that happened because I thought I was ahead this morning, but man, we have financial apocalypse upon us. If this CPI number is bad, it is going to be our all-out mayhem. Now, with that said, I think we're going to avert the disaster today. I actually think the numbers are going to be close to inline, if not under expectations. So good luck to you guys. Just want to note over here, charts real quick. We have come back quite a bit on the treasuries and they are still extremely volatile. So let's get this show on the road here. I am surprised there is liquidity out there. Look at the look at this. There's as much liquidity on the micro futures as there is the full 10-year. Yeah, the most important. I don't know if it's actually going to be the most important CPI of our life. If it's bad, then it's the most important CPI of our lives for sure. And here I am. I don't have my squawk going. Oh my. Oh my. Okay, US core CPI month over month, spot 5 versus spot 4. Repeat, US core CPI spot 5 versus spot 4. A not complete disaster, but definitely not good. Okay, the treasury is going to go here. Come on. Too hard to know what's a good spot in here in this mess, so I think that I am going to stay on the sideline. I would like to buy here, but I don't know. It's already coming back here. This is nuts, man. Okay, so just a read of the numbers. Again, US CPI month over month spot 4 versus an expected spot 4, and US core CPI spot 5 versus an expected spot 5. So only slightly above. Matt left trade of 8. I want to watch that. Forex Factory. Let us come and read the report, shall we? The consumer price index for all urban consumers rose spot 4% in February on a seasonally adjusted basis after increasing spot 5% in January, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported today. Over the last 12 months, the all items index increased 6% before seasonal adjustment. The index for shelter was the largest contributor to the monthly all items increase, accounting for over 70% of the increase. So that is okay. We're okay with that. If it was just shelter, with the indexes for food, recreation, and household and furnishings also contributing. Okay. Yeah, I think that this is okay. I think we're okay. I think financial apocalypse averted. That sure was an insane move on the S&P though, wasn't it? 50-point swing in the S&P 500. Well, look at the micros treasuries. I mean, they didn't move all that much, all things considering. But everybody just kind of is like too afraid to touch it. Okay, but where did he go to? Quant Tower. Nah. Quant Tower is okay. I don't know why you would go there. Oh, no, wait. The one has Sierra charts on the screen here, too. Oh, yep, he's doing Sierra charts. Oh, and he's got edge clear. That's cool. Man, look at that. They come all the way back there. Hold on. Bloomberg, underlying U.S. consumer prices rose in February by more than forecast, leaving the Fed in a tough position as it tries to thwart still rapid inflation without adding to banking sector turmoil. I don't know, guys. So just coming back here and looking at like the crosstabs, right? Shelter was spot 8. Food was actually less than before. Like food and all, it looked like everything was in line except for shelter. So it really does seem to me like shelter is the thing that's killing them. So we would expect shelter to be a little bit high because it's lagged compared to the other indicators. Oh man. Okay, so the reason you're getting this is because of a big move in the dollar. This is going to be really hard to. Oh, that's freaking retarded. So I'm sitting here like, oh, well, I would like to see what he does with his screen. And oh, okay, he does do it in Sierra charts, but it's pretty simple. Better than what he had, that's for sure. But he still doesn't like, he doesn't show the live streams after the fact. That's lame. I don't know, man. I feel like that number was, well, I don't know. I mean, it is spot 5. It is spot 5, but it's not the end of the world. So to me, I'm quite relieved, and I would have thought that the S&P would be able to rally a little bit from here. No? Okay, I'm gonna do it over here. No. I missed a good fill there. Okay. My eyes are really watery this morning for some reason. Come on, come on. One more, one more. RNC Research tweeting, Joe Biden promised inflation would be temporary. Inflation has been at or above 5% for almost 2 years now. Yeah, that's a pretty devastating statistic. I didn't really think of it as 2 years. Wow. I'm kind of mad that I didn't get filled with my other order down here. It was a good pick. Oh, no way. I did get filled with one down here, though. In fact, my average position is below the value area, so I guess I shouldn't complain. I got a pretty good position there. Question now is, how low can rates go? Well, I think that we could get back to 3.5. Yeah. 3.5 sounds okay. Okay. So there's open. So from here, they might start to have a little bit of trouble. Let's see if the volume keeps coming through or not. I am seeing buying in the 5-year, but not in the 10 and the 30. And overall, well, the spread has been all over the place, granted. But it does look like that the spread is steepening here at the moment. Mohammed El Elrian on inflation illustrates the Fed's policy trilemma: delivering low inflation, minimizing damage to growth, and avoiding unsettling financial instability. Not easy for a Fed that was too loose for too long. Mischaracterized inflation, started timidly, and slammed on the brakes. So despite the number not being only just slightly bad, it does seem that the narrative the media is putting out is, oh man, the Federal Reserve is really screwed. Basically, they're going with all of their bad headlines, regardless. Yeah, this is running pretty good. I only regret that I had not more contracts. So that reminds me, did you guys catch this exchange yesterday between Elon Musk and Keith Olbermann? Oh my gosh. One of the funniest exchanges I've ever seen on Twitter, man. So Keith Olbermann is like, so Elon Musk is tweeting that the guy that was dressed up in a funny costume on January 6th was mistreated, and in fact there was video of him telling people, you know, there's no riot, go home, etc., because he was like charged with all sorts of crazy stuff. And Keith Olbermann was complaining that it was against Twitter's terms of service, which I think is ridiculous, but okay, whatever. And so Elon Musk says, have you ever tried a career in comedy? And Keith Olbermann replied, have you ever tried a career in business? Him saying this to literally the richest man in the world. And so Elon Musk replies, I do hope to be successful in business. It's just effing hilarious, man. Let's clear above us. That's a man desperate for relevance, Keith Olbermann. Well, I remember way back in the day, the first time that he kind of, what should we call it? But the last time he kind of had a mental blow up, I guess you could say. Like the whole thing is that the reason that guy became famous was because he was freaking crazy. Oh, Friday. No, this was yesterday. The story that I just told you was from yesterday. It's Monday. Yesterday was Monday, right? Or did I travel in time? Is it Wednesday? Wait. Did I travel forward in time? Okay, moment of truth here is our pullback. Volume not giving me a whole lot of hints here, to be honest. Wall Street Jesus tweets, Bank of America client flow trends. Clients were small net buyers of U.S. equities for the second consecutive week, with flows mostly in single stocks. Financials saw inflows for the week, and clients continued to buy tech. Industrials saw inflow for the first time in 8 weeks, really. Oh, he has mental break. Yeah, he does. Because the whole thing was he used to be a sports reporter, right? He was on their sports network, and he couldn't help but talk about political things, apparently, and so that's how he ended up being on CNBC. But then eventually he got so crazy that not even CNBC wanted him anymore, right? You youngins, Gen Z, you probably don't remember Keith Olbermann. He used to be like the top talking head on the left. Bob Elliott, quick take on the inflation report. Internals look a little worse than expected. Core inflation is 6% annualized, not close to target in short term. Just looking at the macro stats would suggest a 50 basis point hike. Next, we'll see JP's priorities. Yeah. This one's hard to interpret. I am still of the opinion 25 basis point hike. We could try pulling up the tool, but I don't think they would give us very good information right now. So maybe actually will pop in and tell us what it is. Is Bitcoin taking another jump up? You've got to be joking. Yeah, you just lost access to the US banking system. But yep, this is good for Bitcoin. The thing with Bitcoin is that, like, have you noticed it only goes down in fits. Like, anytime where you think like it probably should go down, it doesn't, and it kind of defies gravity until all at once the whole thing collapses, and then they start over again. FX Street News. Wall Street's futures are on the run, with bank stocks finally giving some signs of life following a painful week. Treasury yields eased from their post-release peaks, all of which suggests the US dollar will remain on the back foot. Dissecting Goldman's gory $2.25 billion SVB equity issue. Oh man. Do they own the stock? Bankocalypse postponed while equity and unsecured creditors will lose their money and top management will lose their jobs. Silicon Valley's bank's demise shows that the authorities still don't feel confident winding down a medium-sized bank without protecting uninsured depositors. The question remains why the government had to intervene in the first place. Couldn't SVB saved itself? After all, SVB had put together a rescue plan with a powerhouse investment bank and a powerhouse investment firm. On the evening of March 8th, SVB launched a 2.25 combined common and preferred stock offering led by Goldman Sachs, with General Atlantic agreeing to purchase $500 million of the common stock off at the offer price. Better yet, SVB was raising more money than the $1.8 billion it said it had lost from the sale of nearly all of its available for sale bond portfolio. What could go wrong? Everything. By the next day, it was obvious the offering had failed spectacularly. Depositors were pulling their money, the stock price was crashing, and investors weren't buying at any price. SVB was doomed to FDIC receivership. It's still early to say whether SVB was insolvent or could have been saved from collapse, but this equity offering seemed to have ignored key lessons from the recapitalizations of the banking sector in 2008-2009. I worked on several financial crisis-era banking recap, the author, not me, obviously. Whether by luck or by design, I avoided the unsuccessful capital raises. In volatile capital markets, as Spinal Tap teaches us, it's such a fine line between stupid and clever. During that febrile period, we had a couple of guiding principles as we groped for ways to raise equity for stricken, over-leveraged banks. Okay, febrile is a word that I think we've looked up on this stream before, but I still cannot recall what it means. First, go big, really big, bazooka big, raise a lot more equity than you need and a lot more equity than regulators tell you to raise. Don't just fill in the capital hole. Second, the stock offering has to be underwritten, hard underwritten, or already subscribed for. Investors must assess the equity offering on the basis of repaired balance sheet. They must know you don't actually need them. On both counts, especially the second count, the offering of SVB stock failed. Maybe it was a lost cause anyways, but the stock offering had no chance. As mentioned before, SVB was raising $2.25 billion in common and mandatory convertible preferred stock as it was announcing a $1.8 billion loss from selling much of its AFS bond portfolio. But investors learned in the financial crisis that problems at banks are rarely isolated or contained. They know there's almost always another shoe to drop, and that shoe will have a sharp stiletto. That's funny. Raising just 20% more than the realized loss assumed that management had more credibility than it in fact had with the market. The equity size had to be comprehensive, even overwhelming, and SVB and Goldman Sachs tried to cut it too close. But the much bigger issue is that the offering was not underwritten or already subscribed for. Ideally, Goldman Sachs would have spoken with a small group of investors before the equity offering by wall crossing them. This is a well-established and, if for any cynical readers, well-policed process for disclosing material non-public information to investors and confidentially sounding them out on their interest in buying into a deal. And ideally, SVB's press release would have said that the entire offering was subscribed for or guaranteed by a series of reputable investors, subject either to a clawback or to an increase in offer size if public investors wanted to buy into the deal. Was this feasible? A global investment bank like Goldman Sachs has touch points into any sizable pool of capital you can imagine: hedge funds, private equity funds, public equity funds, sovereign wealth funds, family offices, endowments, pensions, and so on. In fact, the reason a company hires investment banks for distribution is to tap into their network. But the best Goldman Sachs could come up with was $500 million cornerstone order from General Atlantic. Maybe there wasn't enough time, or maybe other wall-crossed investors didn't like the deal. Or maybe SVB and or Goldman Sachs thought they didn't need to and assumed General Atlantic order was a strong enough vote of confidence to assuage the market. If that's the last reason, it was a misjudgment of general cluster proportions. The General Atlantic commitment was more semi-skimmed milk than full-fat dairy. Well, that was not very much of a pullback, by the way. So I think we just hold it from here. Moreover, the purchase price wasn't fixed, but rather to be set at whatever the public offering price would be. General Atlantic was, in effect, gathering a guaranteed allocation on an offering that Goldman Sachs was pricing with the goal and expectation that it will trade well. Ironically, if SVB had been a European bank, there would have been a better chance of saving it from collapse. In a rights issue, the investment banks underwrite on a firm or hard basis. The subscription of new shares, usually at 30 to 40% discount to the dilution-adjusted share price. Importantly, proceeds are guaranteed come hell or high water. Rights issues enabled most European banks to recapitalize in the last financial crisis. A rights issue for SVB would admittedly have been difficult, if not impossible, to execute. U.S. investors are mostly unfamiliar with the mechanism, and when panic sets in, it's hard to gain mindshare around a novel structure. But this only serves to highlight that nobody had enough skin in the game to reassure nervous public investors that SVB could survive the crisis. Goldman Sachs was underwriting only on a best effort basis, which does not entail real financial risk, and General Atlantic's commitment depended on the support of the broader market. It was naive under the circumstances to launch an equity deal that was not fully spoken for, to use investment banker lingo. Is this criticism easy to say after the fact? Yes, but there's a reason why South Park's Captain Hindsight has been described as the hero of the modern age, because we should recognize mistakes we make and learn from them, and maybe also remember what we learned from the last crisis. Good article. That was from the Financial Times. What's this? No, where did it go? Euro 3-month cross-currency basis swaps narrow by nearly 40 basis points. Live Monitor says the pivot nonsense has to stop. Inflation is still hot, and the BLS manipulating numbers just to show CPI is in line means we are stuck with elevated inflation likely for years. Many think we've reached a point where the Fed is facing a real trade-off between hiking and not hiking. The surgical nature of BTFP just eliminated that trade-off, and the hot CPI just ensured not pivot, in my opinion. Well, so I just want to note that while we've moved up here, that it is the flow is kind of losing steam, and I'm not seeing the orders long in the 10 years, so I think that I have to take it. I'll take it at 07 though. Joseph Wang, Fed and central banks have been aware that segments of the market may break while tightening, but they are prepared to support those segments while maintaining tightening. As the Bank of England saved the gilt market through purchases and kept tightening, so the Fed can save banks and keep tightening, says Joseph Wang. I think they're right. I think I'm still favoring a 25 basis point hike. Let's do a poll. Start a poll. FOMC. 0.50. 25. Okay, poll is up. And I did get filled on my exit, so I was able to catch the whole value area. That's not bad, I guess. They could break higher, but it seems like activity is dying down in the treasuries and they're getting stuck. I'm not necessarily seeing clear signs of a liquidity hole, but in such an illiquid market, it's just going to be all over the place, right? I'd say Twitter pretty active this morning. RNC research, Nancy Pelosi on Biden. I don't know if he's going to run. He hasn't shared that confidence with me. Everybody says, well, he's old and all that. Yeah, I want to tell you something. He has great judgment. Okay. The RNC research is pretty brutal sometimes. Zero or GovTrader, high interest rates, higher costs for landlords who buy real estate, higher rent prices to tenant, low interest rates, higher prices of real estate, higher rent prices to tenant. Yeah. The only way to bring down rent is to A, increase supply, B, decrease demand. Well, decreasing demand in housing is pretty difficult, right? Like there are some areas where people want to be that you're just never going to be able to reduce demand. And in fact, I think it would be pretty difficult, if not impossible, to ever keep up with, to ever keep the supply up to the demand in a big city, Yeah, so here's the thing that I think is so ironic about all of this is that all this does is makes it more difficult to fund building a new house, right? Like if you're gonna build a new house, you've got to get like all of the bids on it and everything, and it's not a simple thing. It's not a simple thing, and so the end result that we're gonna have after all of this is still not enough houses being built. Well, this is collapsing back down again. It's dominated by, well, that's true too. But I'm saying that even the big conglomerates have trouble building as many houses as they want to, because of either difficulty getting funding or difficulty finding the workers. That's another thing that I don't think we think about very often or realize, but building a house is quite skilled work. Project, good morning. They don't build, they just buy up whole housing blocks. Well, there are some places where they do want to build and they just can't because of the zonings, but that's the worst places. That's like California and stuff, right? So back to 30, I don't recall where my average position was from. I'm at the moment, I'm kind of feeling like when we were going to do 25 basis points, we were between 3.5 and 3.75. So I suppose we could go to 3.75 if we were going to move, if rates were going to move up today. I mean, 3.75 is pretty far away, but because I think that the buyers had their moment there and kind of blew it, right? And then the selling came and that one, what do you think? Was that one trap traders? Because when they fell down here, it happened pretty precipitously, you know? Just all at once kind of slumped. It was mostly the volume in the 10-year. Have you noticed lobbying to change building approval rules? Well, I don't really have those kinds of issues where I live. I got a letter from our HOA yesterday that they want to change the bylaws to limit rental units in our neighborhood to 7. I never rooted so hard for the HOA. When I lived in an apartment complex and they had an HOA there, and it was such a pain in the butt. I was like, never doing that again. because like nothing bad happened. I don't recall. I think that there was like some drama, but it was something that I didn't personally care too much about. But it was just the whole thing of like somebody gets in there and gets in their mind that they want to do something, and they get so political about it, and it was just the kind of politics that I would say are really, really negative. Like, it wasn't born from somebody really understands their policy and yada 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 sort of thing, you know? So I was like, yep, I'm out of here. No thanks. Countries have public-private partnerships with landlords, and you know what that means. DEI rent. Well, yeah, or yeah, you can make some serious bank doing that, but it is probably not for me. I think that I would like to have some property at some point, but you know what I want to do? I want to move up to Park City, have a small alpaca farm. Oh my gosh. I was reading this story. There was this farm. It was like a unicorn farm or something like that. And they had alpacas, but apparently the alpacas weren't making them money. And it was like a woke colony for trans kids running away from their parents or something. So it just turned into a total dumpster fire, and everybody that was involved deleted their Twitter accounts. But they had alpacas, and apparently the alpacas were like a huge drain on their resources to have the alpacas. Like they weren't, even though they were like selling out the wool or whatever we call it, they were making, the alpacas were a net drain on their resources, and all of their money was coming from like GoFundMe campaigns and stuff like that. So I understand that having alpacas are expensive, and I think I would only have a few of them. But I would like to go up to Park City, have an alpaca farm, have a nice a big house with a big section for the employees and a big section for the guests, and a nice little office space, like a big room that's kind of like a trading floor, and have like an Airbnb sort of a thing, right? So wake up, trade, and then the rest of the day I can talk to guests and entertain guests. I think that's what I should do. Run an Airbnb, Park City. No, because they're expensive. So if I had a larger alpaca farm, it would cost too much. But if I had like a few, maybe a dozen, that would be more manageable. Good morning. Oh yeah, I remember when I lived in Missouri that the government housing was the worst. As a missionary, I mean, I don't know how people feel about this sort of a thing. I'm sure that some people would dislike hearing this, but as a missionary, you kind of realized some areas you do well in and some areas you don't do well in, right? The worst areas to be a missionary in were the rich people areas, right? The places where people were really, really well off. You didn't want to go there because you never had anything to do. Nobody wanted to talk to you. Trading Bunny says that's true. Yeah, she knows. And but the opposite was true as well. Like there's like the people that are working class, and they're looking for things and they want to make changes in their lives and stuff, and they're looking for community, and then those are people that you can teach. But then there's this other side of like just the absolute ghettoest of ghetto, man. Like there was this one street in my area that was like crack alley, man, and you didn't want to go there either, because what happened if you went there was people would talk to you, but it was just like a waste of time. Nobody ever kept their appointments. Nobody ever, and it was just like, ugh. Some of the places that I remember walking into were just grosses me out to think about it. You rent your apartment. Sometimes whenever I'm on TikTok and I'm seeing people get into the gender war sort of thing, and some people on TikTok, man, there are some women on TikTok that are just, I don't think that it's the majority of women or anything like that, but there are some people that are just like super entitled, right? And I'm just sitting here like look, I have 3 stepkids, and then I have 2 kids on that, right? I could have just not gotten married. I'd probably be a millionaire by this point. Because I had a really good deal with the house I lived in. I was renting out, I lived in the master bedroom. I was renting out 2 of the rooms, and I was paying almost all of the by that point, most of my mortgage was covered by that. And I could have finished the basement and done even more, probably. Or I could have gone and bought another apartment at that point. Like, I could have started leveraging it up. And at the time that we were doing that, like 2016, yeah, if I had leveraged it up, gotten good at it, Probably could have been a millionaire. Probably. There is a balanced place you need to be in financially before you can consider ideological things or self-improvement. Yeah, exactly. It's just like there's some people that are just struggling so much that they can't think about church and stuff, right? Or they have such serious problems that, I mean, that was the thing that always bothered me about being a missionary, was that what ended up happening for the most part was we ended up being a help you quit smoking or just like general psychiatric help sort of a thing. Like, we were just woefully underqualified to deal with some of the issues that we were dealing with, you know? And the church didn't prepare us for any of that stuff. We were just supposed to teach the gospel, but man, there's always this in every area. There's always this one member family that is like hoarders or something like that, and you know, you're constantly going in there and helping them clean out their house or whatever. Man, there's this one place that was just absolutely crazy. Ugh, I don't want to think about it. I let my apartment and rent a house is free. Why quit? Why not quit smoking? So in order to be baptized, you have to have quit smoking for 2 weeks. You would think, oh, 2 weeks and then I can start up again, no problem. No, it was super, super hard to get people to quit. And there are a lot of smokers in Missouri too. Oh man. Hoarding is the dumbest problem to have. It really is. But I don't understand, like, ugh. So here's the thing. My wife, I would consider my wife a little bit of a hoarder. Like, she does not like to throw things away, and there are some things in the garage that I would really like to just get rid of because I know I'm never going to touch them, and she doesn't want to get rid of them, right? But she still keeps it clean, right? When it turns into like a psychological disorder or something like that, like some of the houses I've seen are just so disgusting, man. Like, I remember this one place. This house wasn't necessarily dirty, but it was like when you walked down the hallways, it was just like stacks of papers all the way up to your waist. Like, where do you get all of these papers from? Like, holy crap. I don't think if I saved every piece of paper I had ever been given, I don't think it would be that much. Where was he getting all this stuff from? I remember that one side. I tell you what, you have kids. Remember this one, because this guy, he was a nice guy. And I think he was a teacher or something like that in psychology. So he was actually a pretty smart guy. But he was a stay-at-home dad. That's what it was. His wife was the professor and he just stayed at home. And he didn't clean the house. And we're like, why don't you clean it up? You need to clean up your house, man. And he said, well, I don't do it because the kids need to learn to clean the house. So I'm just waiting for them to do it. That's a wrong way to go about it, man. Because I tell you what happens is the kids just get comfortable being in a dirty house, right? If you want your kids to clean the house, keep the house spotless. Keep the house spotless. And then if there's any kind of mess whatsoever, it will bother them. And and worst case scenario, they'll get that way when they're on their own. We got a hoarder house in our neighborhood. They're every night managing their hoard. It extends out to the road and recedes back into the garage. Oh my gosh. That's crazy, man. Man, it's so weird because we don't really have a lot of that in Utah. I mean, every place kind of has it, but like compared to how it was in Missouri, it's like crazy. Like in Kansas, like in Topeka, it's just homeless people roaming the streets like everywhere. Not homeless people, like mentally ill people that should be in a group home everywhere. And I don't know what it is about their social systems and everything else that they're doing in those two states that kind of make it that way, but I've never seen anything close to that in Utah. It's a really a weird thing to me. So like Utah is often maligned for being like a poor state of sorts. Well, like, so most people in Utah, they give 10% of their income to the church, so that's a lot, right? So like the income that you get in Utah is not that high, okay? But even some of the trashy parts of town are better than like the average place in parts of Kansas and Missouri. Hoarders have a kid that comes running out of the piles asking to pet our dog. Sometimes I always tell him no, I don't want my dog to get sick from him touching it. Oh. Yeah, so the hoarder house that we went to, they had I think he was a 3-year-old. He must have been more like 4 or 5 though, and they said that he was autistic. But I'm sitting here like, well, how can you expect the child to be intelligent or anything like that when they're literally living in trash? Like, the kids would just play around in the trash. And if something happened, right? If like, you know, somebody pukes or all sorts of crazy stuff happens, they wouldn't clean it up. Oh, it was just nuts. They had this tub I don't know what happened in the tub, but like it was like a horror flick in that bathroom. Like, holy shit. And then of course when they got kicked out, they also extra trashed the house too. Ugh. I remember that one particularly well because like I met this family in this one place. I didn't like going over there. Like the previous missionaries went over there a lot, and I'm like, no. Like I was a little different from some of the other people. I was like, I don't waste my time with things that I know that nothing's gonna happen. And I think that in the end it did me good. But then when I moved to a different area, there were like out in the middle of nowhere, and I mean literally like you're like an hour away from the nearest town that's maybe like 15,000 people, and they were there living in like this portable home, like really, really trash portable home. There was like, oh, this comes up, and I'm like, oh, I knew somebody that name, and then I saw who it was. I was like, nope, we're not coming back out here. No, thank you. Don't waste your time. Sucks because our neighborhood is 40 years old. It's nice enough, but it's hanging on by a thread. That's why the HOA is tackling the renter issue. Yeah, well, so here's the thing that I find. Or that I found in my own neighborhoods, right, is that what you would like to have is a place where it's okay to like tear down the house and build a new house, right? Like you need mixed. The more mixed that it is, it seems like the more sustainable it is. Because if you get a neighborhood that's all very you know, it was like all built at the same time and everything else like that, and it's all the same income range, right? Then what happens is 50 years from now, those houses are all trashy houses. They don't survive very well, and we don't build stuff as well as we used to, right? So those, nobody wants to live in those houses, and then the area becomes the ghetto, right? But if it's a place where you know, you kind of have a mix, then like what will happen is people will buy up the trashy houses and tear them down and build something nicer there. That's what happens in the area that I live, because there's constantly people building houses because they're rebuilding. In Utah, 50 years is old. Except for it's kind of funny because there are some parts of downtown that have really old houses and they're so expensive, but people really clean them up nice inside. So I guess it's okay. Okay, so we had a little bit of a pullback from that decline that we had in the 10-year. And they're getting smacked down again here. It looks like it's correlated a little bit with the dollar moving up here. There's correlations with renters and blocks of crows because they produce so much garbage. Yeah, unfortunately in the US, most of us don't live in centuries-old refurbished medieval dungeons, yeah. Well, so like the house that I live in is in the middle of a pretty old neighborhood. And there was just this one lot of area that a guy had kept his whole life, and then when he died they sold it off to developers, and developers built new homes in it. So it was only like 5 or 6 new homes, but they're building one down on the corner now. Like there's always a few new houses being built around somewhere, so this area stays vibrant. But our areas, you know, I live in Davis County. I live away from downtown. If you live like Salt Lake, it's crazy expensive. 20 minutes away, it's fine. You get like 45 minutes away, then they start. There's some houses up in Layton and stuff that are they're so nice. Same price as mine, but like twice as big. Has the lake dried up? It doesn't look good, I tell you that much. They're really concerned about it. I mean, everybody being super concerned about it was before all of this crazy snow. So we'll see how much it helps the lake. But I think what's going to happen is we're going to get to, like winter of next year. And that's when people will really start to panic, because they'll see like we just got the most rain, not rain, but like the most precipitation over the winter that I can ever remember. Like it was crazy snow this year, right? And I don't think it's going to be enough to replenish the lake much at all. Because the reality is that all of the runoff is, all of the water is being used for alfalfa farming, which is like very water intensive, and they really shouldn't be growing in the desert. Need Greta. I don't know, man. Some people get really animated about it, man. Like I don't know if they're just playing it up for like propaganda's sake or whatever, but they're all like, oh, we're moving, it's going under, this is gonna be, like the city is gonna get abandoned when the lake is gone and all of this crazy stuff. Like it's really, like, people get really apocalyptic about it. And I agree that there's a problem. It's just, I think part of it is that people on social media look at it as an opportunity to virtue signal, right? They're like, look, see, when we take a shower here, we collect all of the rainwater and then we use that for our dishes, and that's how we're saving water. It's like, you realize that humans and like our lawns are not even like a teeny tiny fraction of it. It's the freaking alfalfa farms. You have to change the structure of the thing, and yeah, it's gonna hurt the farmers, and they're gonna have to slowly shut down, not grow alfalfa, because you shouldn't be growing alfalfa in the desert. Maybe Earth wasn't actually meant to harbor life. There's just this blink of time where Earth could hold life, and ultimately its destiny is to be a barren rock. Ugh. So, have you watched the Godzilla anime? It's actually, the first one I thought was really good. It's I don't know, it's weird, okay? Because it's freaking Godzilla, but while it's freaking Godzilla, they're doing this like super high brain, like big brain kind of ideas in it. And the thing in the first one is that they can't stop Godzilla. They can't kill him. And so the surviving humans build a spaceship and abandon Earth. And so they build a, one of those civilization ships. Oh, I didn't ever turned on my fan, sorry. Silly me. I gotta remember to do that. It's not good for the camera. Anyways, they build this world ship with that like, well, not a world ship, but it's like that they're in the ship for like hundreds or thousands of years or something like that. Can you imagine living in space, having to live in space like that? Sounds like hell. Sounds awful. No, I think, I don't know. You know what's something that really interests me? I think it interests me because when you research it, you can't find anything about it. You'd think that this is a scientific issue, so you would be able to debunk it pretty easily and so forth. But you believe probably there is. I think that there probably is life out there. There's probably all sorts of activity out there, but you would never be able to see it just from listening to the raves because it'll take too long to get here. Anyways, so there's the abiogenic theory of oil. So the theory is that petroleum is actually produced deep in the Earth's crust through geological processes that naturally renews itself and has absolutely nothing to do with dinosaurs or algae or anything like that. That's the theory. And apparently this is what people thought before like 1920 or something like that. And then they came in and they said, oh, they're fossil fuels. So that's the conspiracy theory. I can't find any scientific evidence backing this theory up, but that's the thing that's weird about it, is that I've never seen something like easily debunking it and stuff. Maybe I haven't searched hard enough. Maybe I should search harder. But there's this idea that like the Earth is a lot more resilient than we're giving it credit for. Right? I do think that we kind of, in many places, overestimate our impact on the Earth. What's your theory about negative blood groups? I don't. Okay, so there's new lows. That turned around awfully fast. Oh no, wait, was that? No, that's just lower than the earlier spike. It's not lows. Okay. We could, well, I don't know. Trying to go for like the extension didn't really work yesterday, did it? But let's just, I think that it's still a little too crazy for me to try and trade it, but let's just say 363. But I just the climate change issue is one that I always feel a little bit I don't know. Like the thing is my expertise is not climate change, right? I specialize in economics. And everybody's always making you feel like that you need to be the expert on this particular issue, but just not. But I am in the economic issues and kind of like more of the demographic and things that are touching economics that we need to know for what we're doing. And the fun thing that pisses me off about that one is that it's like, well, yeah, there are some problems we gotta like deal with them, but like they're not dealing with them. Like there's not even an effort to go into the places where work actually needs to be done. They're spending all of this time like shaming you for using too much energy and like increasing your energy prices when it won't do a bit of good because it's all India and China that's creating all of the pollution. And then meanwhile, you got things like the lake is drying up and they're not doing anything about it. Or the whole thing in the South River Basin with California and all that, where are they going to get their water from? Like they have to redo their water down there, man. It's going to be a disaster. Right? They don't do anything about it. Nobody cares. Where's all of the people freaking out and talking all the time? Why isn't Greta Thunberg down in California telling them to use less water? Come on. It's so transparently political and hypocritical, in my opinion. They should stop. Well, I think you have to sell it. I think you have to have a water market. But it's a real problem because of the farming, right? Like what has happened is the water rights, right? Is it you get in and you have certain rights and they didn't distribute them sustainably. So now it's being used for farming, and then the farmers are like, well, what are we gonna do? Well, you shouldn't have built your farm in the freaking desert, man. I don't know what else you can do. Right? And meanwhile, we have this technology that allows us to make power without creating carbon emissions, safely, sustainably, all of these things, nuclear power, and they fight against it. It's like total nonsense. Don't tell me it's about the environment, man. It's not about the environment, because you're not doing any of the things that you'd do if it was actually about the environment, right? If it was actually about the environment, you would go and you would do the easy wins, like creating, you know, a sustainable water rights setup in the southwestern United States. You do things like start generating more nuclear power. Like, come on. Stupid. From the economic side of it, it's dumb. And then they want to introduce carbon credits, which is not. That's a bad idea. See, this is kind of like what I'm talking about. So they're still at 363. It looks like it wants to go. I think it could. They're definitely selling it. I mean, it's been like a net 20,000 contracts now sell. By the way, let's see how did our poll do? 74% of you guys are saying 25 basis points. So you agree with me. Just as many saying 0 as saying -25. And there's still actually some people saying 50 basis, which surprises me. I feel like that 50 basis points is off the table, but the carbon credits issue is kind of interesting because they did kind of use something similar to carbon credits to deal with the acid rain issue. So they think that it works, and I think that in the limited use case that they used it for, it works. But if you turn this into one of the most valuable commodities in the economy, it's going to be very economically destructive. I don't think you're going to like what you see. Okay, there's 364. So I think I could have taken that. So a little bit of pushback there now, though. You're waiting for Credit Suisse to collapse and then buy up. Well, how are they doing? I don't know if this Credit Suisse is as dire as it might seem. Let's pull our chart up here. I won't keep it up like we did yesterday, but well, the KRE does not look good. It is up pretty big overnight. It's up pretty big overnight. Okay. But they are falling here at the moment. They're Swissies, so you can never say. Yeah, my uncle, who I've been building the desk with, oh my gosh, I worked so hard. So we were like, okay, we gotta do this finishing and sand it and all of these things, and then we're gonna put the product on it, and that should prevent it from like curling, and we just got to do it all this weekend, right? And we didn't even get close to doing it. Like, I was gone 7 hours, and my wife was like, it doesn't take 7 hours to stain a table, Seth. Well, we didn't even stain the table because all we did was put the C channels in it. Oh, but it's gonna look crazy good though. We did do a test of a piece of the wood with the stain on it, and it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. I don't know, you probably won't see it in videos and everything, but it's gonna be interesting to look at. I'll probably spend my whole stream like admiring the wood grain in front of me. So anyways, my uncle is super concerned about the Credit Suisse thing. And it is just kind of like the general overall thing that I've seen is that the public is super triggered. Like, I think that everybody is just still traumatized by 2008 is really what it is. All of the millennials and Gen X are traumatized by 2008. And because I kind of see what's going on right now, and I'm not so sure that it's as big of a deal as people think it is. I think that by the end of the year, it will kind of be like, oh yeah, remember when Silicon Valley Bank went and kaput? I don't think that it's going to be like this society-altering event like 2008 was. $365. So now that I've kind of got a theoretical winner under my belt, I could consider taking some trades. And I would say, well, I don't really like taking trades when the 10-year has less than 1,000 lots in liquidity out there. But I think that we could probably pull something. I'm a little nervous about taking 365 though.
This sure seems like it's a pretty strong trend developing though. Like, look at this. They're not done. What's SVB in comparison? Well, so SVB was not a small bank. Like, that's the thing. They had they were the second largest bank failure ever, right? No. So 1K. So right now, I don't see a price that has more than 1,000 lots on in the 10-year, and when I see that, it makes me nervous about trading. So when I'm in that situation, you know, I could scalp it with the 10-year, but trying to swing it over here in the micros tends not to work very well. Yeah. We're in the middle of a flash crash of sorts. So when it does this, you can get like these little ones really easily. See that? Didn't even face any adverse excursion. Now they're pushing. So if I had taken it at 3.5 or 3.65, what was it? Yeah, 3.65. I'd already be up 10 ticks. That came back real fast though. So what I'm seeing right now is a market that is having a very, very strong trend, and a trend that is likely to continue, but that is in a constrained liquidity position where you're at very high risk of getting a strong pullback against you. So I'll take that contract off. So I'm just looking at the poll. We got 17 votes on the poll, and the majority of you think 25 basis points. There is more of you saying 0 than 50 or 20 or cut, but so I'm gonna try and change the scales here a little bit. Okay, the Wall Street consensus right now is 0, right? I mean, it's changed since the beginning of the week, but the consensus right now is 0. So we're kind of going out on a limb here saying that it's going to be 25. Although I think that we can justify that with this, excuse me, with the CPI report that we just had.
Yeah, so there's John Grady saying the same thing. The light liquidity, high volatility situation makes for very difficult day trading unless you have a lot of experience with it. Even then, it can be tough. Most people should avoid it. Markets tend to be an easier read when there is slower movement and more liquidity. I sent an email yesterday to my subscribers explaining what is currently happening. Short version, SVB, but debacle is creating a domino effect. Now other regional banks and credit unions are experiencing runs and their shares are following, unlikely to level out this week. Honestly, if you had to wait for John Grady to tell you what was going on, you probably shouldn't be trading. Hey, there's some extension. Look at that. Now what are we going to get? Can you believe that? I would be up $50 if I had taken that trade. That's crazy. Yeah, this downtrend is a little bit not normal. It's a lot bit not normal. It's like 40,000 contracts. Hey, Pap, how are you doing? Look at that. Okay, so there was a large order popped out at 10.5 and the bids decided to hit it. I'm going to put a stop limit here, like really tight to protect my profits. It looks like there's some defense there, so. Okay, they did hit me. What's your take on the bank collapsing news? Well, I think that bank was really poorly run. Like when you look at it from a banking perspective, that bank was really poorly run. And there's been a lot said about systemic risk lately, right? It's kind of a weird thing because the systemic risk, sorry, there's so much sibilance there. The systemic risk that we're facing right now is one entirely created by people's fear and panic, right? Like these banks have liquidity and resources to handle returning deposits under current circumstances, or under normal circumstances, right? It's only when there's a bank run, when there's like a panic going on, that these are going under, right? Now it's kind of a curious issue because the FDIC only insures people up to $250,000, and so now it's turning out that like most money in the banking system is not federally insured, and that's all of these like small businesses and stuff. So they're all deciding, oh, okay, I guess we have to go to a big bank. That is a pretty, I would say, a pretty negative change, right? Because what's going to happen is the regional banks are going to have to rely on personal loans to make their money, right? It's not good for the regional bank system. It's not good at all. all because one bank was just poorly run, right? Is hinting for some further black swan? Well, I don't know. So like, and this is where going back to the systemic risk sort of a thing is that I think there are some systemic risks in the market. They aren't showing up right now. But if we continue to raise interest rates, I think that you will see something really break, you know? So like if Credit Suisse broke, for instance, I think that if Credit Suisse broke, that you would probably see a lot of fallout, right? And there's just a lot of situations like that out there. So I'm still kind of looking at this like I think that nothing blew up on Monday. Well, so like this rally that's happening right now, I think I want to be involved in that, right? If I had some more cash, I do have some cash to deploy, but I don't think that I want to do it at the moment, because I don't know where to deploy it yet. But nothing blew up. I think you buy the dip. I really do. I don't know if you buy it this week. I think that it might still be a little bit all over the place. It'll probably continue to be really wild, but I think you buy the dip off of this. Yeah. And that's why I think I'm leaning towards 25 basis points, is that I'm sitting here like, okay, yeah, like we had a problem, but they stepped in, they fixed the problem, and that's it was like this Brexit thing, or not Brexit thing, but in the UK, right? They had issues in the UK, right? And there was this whole big drama over it, and like everybody's already forgotten about it. Everybody's already forgotten about it. But the markets were like really crazy for a bit. They had to step in and like, you know, fix a few things, and then life went on. And everybody's acting like this is the start of a recession. This is a 2008 level crisis, and I'm just not seeing it. Just not seeing it that way. And if I'm wrong, then I'm like super dead wrong. And I think that this would be a situation where trying to take a trade based off of those kinds of predictions is probably not very wise. So there's some big orders stacked down there at 1310. It is looking like that they want to hold it here for a little bit, or that it's going to get stuck here for a little bit. Oh yeah. Did you hear that like the big banks like JP Morgan and so forth are having trouble onboarding all of the money that's trying to move over to them? So like, even though nothing's like breaking, we are seeing a change in the banking system, one that's not positive, right? Switching over to 10 national banks are in charge of everything is not a good thing. Having all of the small businesses decide that their local bank that they've been using all their life is no good anymore, and I need to put it all in JP Morgan is not a good thing. Like the whole game theory, because of this psychological shift, the whole game theory of it has shifted, right? How can those banks compete now? I don't know how they can. I guess they'll just have to offer like much better rates and services and stuff. Man, so Bitcoin's still up this morning. The dollar's been having a pretty good run to the upside, and it seems that this run to the upside in the dollar has been partly driving this move down in treasuries. The 6J overall has been slumping here along with it, so I think that like our general theory, I played that really well. When I had the long and it got up there and it was kind of being slow, and I was thinking, well, I don't know if this is actually like a buy. Like, I think that the number was better than expected, but I'm still thinking 25 basis points. And when I look at the interest rate in the 10-year right now, that means that we could move up. And so I shifted and I was right. I guess I should have sold it because I could have made like $80 there, but that's okay. In this situation, it really is better to just kind of like play it safe, right? Because we're going to get a lot of good trades after all this. So we just got to wait for the right. Yeah, I guess if it wasn't for the liquidity conditions, though, that would have been a really good setup for us, right? Moved the wrong way, like we can see from a valuation perspective that it's going to come down. Yeah, I think that was a good play. I mean, we played it on Sim, so I don't know. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, crisis policy is invariant to political parties. A Republican President Reagan first nationalized the bank. The largest bank bailout happened under Bush, and Trump instituted the first universal basic income in systemic ownership by a commercial paper, 32K notes. Invariant to political parties? I don't know. Dude, watching the politics of this is like really interesting. So like the Democrats are privately freaking out. Like there's been a couple of stories about this that the Democrats are freaking out because they know that it's not going to look good for them in 2024. So they're looking for any way that they can to try and blame it on Republicans. So it was read a really interesting article on Zero Hedge yesterday where they were saying that, you know, one of the things that they're trying to blame this on was a rule that gave the banks less strict requirements, right? That's true. The banks were given less strict requirements, but the thing is that the net effect of that was that money was more loose for the small banks. In other words, it was a change that was intended to alleviate some of the issues that we've had. So if you had gotten rid of that rule, things maybe would have happened sooner and would have been worse, actually, not better. So that one's not going to work. So I think the Democrats might get away with like presenting that to everybody as that was the case. But I ultimately, I don't think that they're going to be able to escape responsibility because at the end of the day, the reason that the Federal Reserve had to raise rates was because of inflation. And the reason that we had inflation was because of Democrat policies. And that the Democrats can argue that most of the money happened while it was under Trump. But everybody knows that if the Democrats had been in charge at that time, that they would have printed even more. Right? It's not like that they were opposed to spending the money. The Dems could have changed the rule back. I don't know about that one. It's kind of hard to get anything through Congress right now. The other one on that rule change was that, like, even though it was spearheaded by Republicans, the Democrats backed it too, right? Like 30 Dems in the Senate crossed over to it. Like it overwhelmingly passed. So, right? So they're desperately looking for like a reason to blame it on Republicans, and they're not getting it. So what do they do from here? And you can kind of see it in the comments. I get some comments on my TikTok where people will start having a political argument, and some of the people that I see comment are just don't know what's going on. Like they say pretty silly things, and it's like I don't understand why you thought anybody would take you seriously. But you know what it is? This is the whole thing. This is what pisses me off, man. About politics right now is that the Democrat Party has basically had to resort to economic disinformation to try and stay in power, right? That's what's been at. They've been straight up gaslighting people about inflation. Straight up gaslighting them. This whole thing that it's just corporate greed that's causing the inflation is just so stupid. It hurts. hurts my brain to think about. That people could be that economically illiterate. $13. So curious. Oh, I see what's going on. So I was looking for a pullback, and we're getting a pretty decent pullback in the 10-year, right? I mean, it's not the best, but it's the best that we got. But the 30-year has not pulled back at all. The 30-year has not pulled back at all. So I thought that we would maybe be back at 365 by now, and we're not even close. March FOMC preview, inflation fighting. I don't want to play with you anymore. Man, there's a lot of people in the market that really think that okay, the fight over inflation is like done and over with. I'm not convinced that the Federal Reserve will see it that way. In fact, let me go out on a limb here and go even further with that. I think that in the Federal Reserve's mind, that continuing to say that we need to deal with inflation and everything would be something to give the market confidence, right? Like if we're confident that we fixed the problem and that we're not getting a deflationary impulse from all of this, then you would want to come out and raise interest rates another 25 basis points. And I would do that unless I knew something about the situation of some of these banks like Credit Suisse or whatever that would tell me that another interest rate increase would really break things. Let's pull up our bank stocks here. So they're still kind of pointed to the downside, the KRE. Let's just come back here for a moment. Look at some of our tech stocks. Microsoft, Intel. Oh, those all look good. I was hoping to get 27 in Intel. They're already up 50 cents. Okay, there's that come down a little bit now. The 30-year backed off. So does that mean that we're getting more steepening? It looks like we could be. I don't know. Look at the knob spread today, man. The knob spread is just all over the place. Like you could scalp the knob spread like you can scalp the 10-year on most days. That's how much movement that's been having. Well, let's come over to zero hedge. Shelter inflation hits record high as Americans' real wages drop for 32nd straight month. Senator Warren calls for Powell's recusal from Fed's bank failure investigation because the Fed chair's Powell's actions directly contributed to these bank failures. This is such a ridiculous thing. This is another thing. I'm sorry for so much politics, but like it's particularly relevant now, isn't it? Right? I think that the Federal Reserve should be thought of as a force of nature. Their policy is supposed to be largely systematic with lots of room for discretion, but the market generally knows what they're going to do based on the circumstances. market generally knows what they're going to do based on the circumstances. And so to come in and say that it was Powell's fault is kind of like just ignoring how the Federal Reserve works. Like that anybody else would have done something differently. They've been pretty unified, and I think that if Janet Yellen was the Federal Reserve president, she would be raising rates really aggressively and all these things. So like Warren trying to go after him for this, I think, is just really makes her look dumb. Can't believe that there was a time when people thought that Elizabeth Warren was like knew a lot about banking and stuff. Like, okay. So after the CPI, what does Wall Street think? It was in line with elevated expectations, with core CPI coming in slightly above consensus, while most of the inflation was driven by shelter, accounting for over 70% of the headline's increase. Powell's preferred supercore metric, which excludes shelter and rent, rose to spot 5% from 0.36, the highest since September. Besides shelter, there were also gains in recreation and airfares, while the eggs and meat index dropped, as did energy services. Used cars surprisingly dropped despite the Manheim index suggesting sharp increases, which means used car prices are likely lagging now and will push up the index in future months. There is more in our full review of the CPI, but what really matters now is what the market assessment of the data is. We'll look at today's STRS market shows the odds of a 25 basis point hike rose modestly after tumbling in recent days and are currently at 80% after dipping below 50% earlier in the session. As noted below, the prevailing consensus among Wall Street reactions is that while the data was not very hot, it remains hot enough to push the Fed to hike 25 basis points in the March 22nd FOMC meeting, which means calls by Goldman and Barclays for a pause and Nomura's 25 basis point rate cut call will be wrong. Unless, of course, the banking crisis is just starting and we will see more failures. To that point, while regional banks are surging, the same cannot be said for Swiss bank giant Credit Suisse, whose CDS just hit fresh all-time wides above 550 basis points as the market continues to raise odds that the second largest Swiss bank will be bankrupt in under 5 years. And while we wait to see what Credit Suisse does, here is a snapshot of Wall Street analysts and strategists' reactions to today's CPI print. I'm not going to read all of these. I'll read yeah, most of them are from analysts that I've never heard, don't hear about very often. So, oh wow, the Treasury came back really hard. Good form, good form. That whole move is gonna retrace? Is it really? What? Man, like here I was being like, oh, you know, I should have taken a trade and yada yada yada. This is wild volatility. Like, oh, we just got lucky on that one. Can you imagine if you had bought 6.8? Jeez. Well, this could be a slog all the way up until the FOMC meeting. I guess it comes down to how much consensus they develop. Do they really all converge on 25? I mean, you guys all seem really certain that it's going to be 25. Well, it's gotten a little bit, after 20 votes, it's gotten a little bit more fuzzy, but still 50% of you say 25 basis points. When Goldman said, "Oh, it's going to be 0," I was like, "Oh," because on TikTok I said, "I still think they're going to do 25 basis points." That was like Friday, so I was like, "Oh no, did I get it wrong?" I probably should clear above us here. Justice Department and SEC investigating Silicon Valley Bank's collapse, reports the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. Somebody else, Walter Deemer, saying the 2-year Treasury is trading like a meme stock, kind of. Did you say, did Uzi say that before he did? I think that Uzi should get credit for it. When did Walter tweet this? 7:57 a.m. He stole it from somebody else. Did you steal it from somebody else, Uzi? Where did that come from? Pulling back again. When you said earlier that it's trading like a meme stock, the treasuries are trading like meme stocks. Did you make that up yourself, or did you get it from somebody else? Because somebody on Twitter stole your comment. He's getting all of the retweets for it. Just crossed my mind. Okay. I think so. Sometimes I wonder. like here's the thing is I'll be sitting here and I just watch the thing. I read the headlines as they come in, and I come up with, my analysis and all of that. And sometimes I think I'm coming up with a really unique take, and then I see everybody else saying it, and I'm like, was it really like I said it, and then my dozen subscribers start saying it, and it like spread, or was it just that much of a no duh sort of a comment that everybody comes up with it? I thought that was going to happen with the BTFP. The BTFP to me is like a financial mulligan, right? Like in golf, when you screw up and you put it into the water, you can you can choose to take a mulligan and just redo that swing or whatever. That's what I think it is. If the bank crisis is limited to just a few banks, then the actions taken by the Fed and Treasury will prove inflationary, cautions one analyst, reporting Forbes. Thinking about housing and everything. The problem, the thing with inflation. So it's been like 5-6% now for 2 years, and I think I'm seeing a couple of things now that makes me concerned that it's going to go on for another 2 or 3 years. Like wages have not been keeping up at all. Not even close. Like my day job last year, they were like, well, it's been a rough year, and inflation is likely to subside, so we should be able to split the difference. That's how they justified it last year. So then this year, you don't even get 5%, right? So now 2 years in a row, you've given me less than inflation. It's BS. And they don't say anything about it that time, but I'm concerned that at what point does the wage inflation start coming to play? At what point do people really demand, because I mean the labor market has been kind of tight, right? And the thing is that increases awfully fast.
You know, that's like $20,000-$30,000 more in income that like the higher income tech workers should probably be getting, right? And maybe an additional 10K for kind of more average earners. That would have a big impact on things. There you go, Nassim Nicholas Taleb tweeting to this person that says banks are failing because they bought treasuries, full stop. The safest asset in the world is the riskiest asset in the world. Even Nassim Taleb says no, he's not just stupid but fundamentally in bad faith. They bought long maturity treasuries. It's the duration, not the treasury part. I owned treasuries but did well. Why? Because short duration. Yeah, it's a dishonest comment, I think. It may be because he just doesn't understand what's going on, but I think you're going to see more of this. This is why I'm warning you. For political reasons, you're going to see more of this. Because Democrats have to blame it on somebody else, right? So they have to portray it as Jerome Powell screwed everybody over by raising interest rates too much. Right? It's kind of a bad take, though, if inflation continues to be a thing throughout the summer, right? Uh-oh, what did they add? What does this person say? What the heck? Okay, that's a crazy. Can I this is like just out of left field, but some people on, is this a joke or what? I'm increasingly open to the theory that the trans movement is merely the secret vanguard of the ultra far right whose mission is to crush feminism, gay rights, and the Hollywood celebrity left. Okay, I don't know where you get that one from. It was Spot Gamma. Total options volume, total open interest. There's something about the speculative nature of these blow-offs where volume is massive but relative new open interest is lacking. Example, Friday had record put volume but total open interest was flat. Okay, good piece of information there from Spot Gamma. So that means that they really are not taking new positions. They are just scalping it, and that people aren't taking bets in the market. Curious. Yeah, right, Pep? That comment is just like a little crazy. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where that issue goes. Like, the trans movement is collapsing. I don't like talking about it so much because that's the sort of thing that got a lot of people in trouble or like got demonetized and all of these sorts of things. But it has been a fairly significant political force over the past like year or two, and I'm just telling you, the winds are shifting on that. There's been a couple of really significant news articles from major news organizations kind of doing some whistleblowing on this issue. There was a major medical journal yesterday that said that some of the treatment that was being pushed is not sufficiently backed by evidence. And I saw a survey yesterday that Democrats were pushing saying that Ron DeSantis's policies
don't play well with middle Americans, but when you look at the questions that they were actually asking, I don't think that it really actually says what they think it does. I think that overall the public opinion is turning against the trans right movement overall, and moving towards that they think that it's a social contagion of sorts, or that at least that the way that we're treating it is not probably not appropriate. So that's going to shift things, and where that goes with the politics, I'm not too sure. I think that it probably hurts Democrats, but that might not be the biggest issue in 2024. It will it? So I know it's a controversial issue, but it's one that we kind of have to keep an eye on, because it is probably going to play into the next election to some extent. So we'll see. Ian Shepherdson, if wage increases continue to slow, the trend is pretty clear. Core services inflation will follow. The Fed doesn't need to keep hiking, but they will, so the risk of more accidents will rise. Man, so I really don't like seeing like 8 ticks at once moving around so fast. This is a dangerous market, man. The 30-year is still kind of chilling down there at the bottom, though. So it doesn't really help us if we want to take a trade in the 10-year. I would also say some moderation in the spreads, so that makes it doubly hard to take positions. You combine ticks and jigsaw, it's a little easier to read now. I think the 10-year is a lot easier to read by combining ticks for sure. And I don't know how people in the NASDAQ do it without using the tick consolidation, but I have this robot that attempts to detect when people are trying to what is the word? Impersonate me. People on Discord try to impersonate me. So I've been running this robot and it seems to work. But I can't test the banning portion of it. It's like whenever it bans it, the other robot beats it to it or something like that. I don't get an error. It just doesn't do anything back. So what I need is one of those situations where the other robot wasn't catching it and my robot does, but that for some reason that one hasn't happened in a long time. Man, this is moving so fast. Look at that. The micro's about to go into well, I mean, 3.75 seemed like so far away, but it looks like it feels so close now. Feels so close now.
Yeah, the 5 and the 30 there in particular really turned down. Are we getting more movement? Yeah, we are getting a little bit more to the upside here in the dollar and the Japanese yen falling a little bit. Oil, oh man, all over the place today. Right into kind of the hole that they developed off of that initial break lower, though. Man, today's session was not was awfully fast, wasn't it? Let's change today's title to Markets Survive CPI. CPI. Markets survive CPI despite slightly higher reading. So they tried to swing back up there, and there was a little bit of fight. So let's see here. How long has it been? 7:47. We could be seeing a second leg. It came back so far that the second leg may not actually result in a lower low this time, which is kind of an unusual situation, but the 5-year definitely was dumping through that downturn. Know how Canadian foreign minister calls for regime change in Russia? Well, it's already kind of stopping there. I don't know. This is, I think that first trade that we took would have been a good one. It was a good play, but this is turned into noise. I do think that we're getting a meta order short there, but the order flows have flipped around really quickly here, so. It's not quite as high as it was though. Before we were up in here. Should we? No, not yet. When I first started trading, markets were much quieter, and I would often see was like a little bit of an extension to the lows, and it would pull back, and it would come down, and it would, wouldn't quite make those lows again, and then they would push higher after that. And it's doing that same pattern right now. So I'm not pointing that out to suggest that it's likely to go higher, but just to point out the kind of the difference in the market, that we've been in kind of a trending market, and yet there has been a lot of movement since we first touched those lows. So I don't know if that's just because of the light liquidity, but it's coming back a lot here, right? S&P 500. I mean, they've been on a pretty good tear. Man, if after the news we had just bought at like what, 39.20, 40-point winner. That's a pretty crazy move over there. Sorry I'm so quiet. I'm looking over here and looking at a couple things. Buying pretty correlated across the 5, 10, 30. I don't know, man. Like, so the thing that I'm seeing is just like when I come at the charts and I look at the 10-year, for instance. So let's zoom in on the 10-year, for instance. Okay, so there was pretty good buy up there, but then these other moves that we've had, swings have been on very little relative volume. So they do all seem to be going together, but like the amounts, like it is not the 5-year. There wasn't buying over here. There's a big block trade over in here though. Yeah, so I'm not seeing the degree of correlated movement that I thought I would be seeing, you know? So I've been looking for like rack mount stuff to put in my rack. And some places are really asking ridiculous prices for things. Like, look at this. This is just a drawer. 240 bucks for a drawer. That's as much as the rack. That's more than I spent for the rack. How can you possibly justify that much? Okay, like maybe $100? What's this? It's got stuff on the front of it. I don't know what that's about, but maybe that one. You would think that you'd be able to find them for like 60 bucks though. There you go. You go to B&H, you can find them cheap. Let's see, what was that? That's weird. Oh, must have been in ES. Yes, okay. 200. Hold that. 39.65. So they're still running out of the way. Well, with the way this is going, how long do you think it could be before the S&P 500 could be at 4,000 again? What do you think? Way this is going this morning, it kind of seems to me like we're going to be back up there soon. Since this pullback up here, it's been awfully quiet. It's kind of hinting that they want to go lower. Like the volume in the 30-year definitely looks like lower. I do think we could be still getting a meta order short here. But that's maybe just been interrupted by all sorts of other crazy stuff. I don't know, did we have... No, the dollar didn't really move there for that. Yeah, I think you'd have to say that it's meta order selling in the treasury itself. It is selling, but it's just a super slow market right now. I'm surprised that the liquidity hasn't stacked up higher. Okay. Interesting. Seems like there's some fight in here. I don't know. That's all wiggling around an awful amount. I mean, how far can the S&P 500 continue to rally without this, like, dropping further though? Like, the S&P looks like it's not going to stop. Let's come and look at it on a volume profile. That's my volume profile is stuck apparently. There we go. Okay, so we're still within the volatility area. So what you'll tend to see happen in the market is you get the big downturn, and then you'll get a period of excessive volatility, and you get these big candle days. It goes up and down a ton, and really you'll really see it on the daily chart, right? Lots of big wicks and big candles down in here. And usually that is followed by a quick recovery. So I think that in this instance, a quick recovery would be back to 4,100, but they could possibly make it to 4,000 today. That would be something else. I wonder what kind of role the 0 day to option expirations are doing right now. Coming back to the higher end of this range. You say 73 at least? That's like some Fibonacci level. Good grief. Well, the rates are rallying here a little bit more. I'm kind of wondering. Oh, I did miss here just a moment ago. Joseph Wang, monetary policy works on interest rate sensitive sectors. Traditionally, we think of that as housing, but they have limited layoffs there. But that is not the only rate sensitive sector. This time policy is working via tech layoffs. Hmm. I don't know. This particular pullback seems to be, well, I think that we're still kind of in a middling zone. It feels to me like that was a pretty strong move up there, but I'm not sure if it actually was. I'm not too crazy to short anything yet. No, in fact, I would really strongly question if it makes any sense to do a short at all today in the S&P. But the treasuries here, higher highs don't mean shit. Not on an intraday basis. But the treasuries are just, they've been trading a pretty wide range here down at the lows. That's a pretty wide range at the lows in the treasury, and I seems to me like I think that what's happening is because it's moving so much, my mind is like anchored to that and thinks, that must have meant something. But when I look at the volume, I'm really not sure it's telling me anything. So I think that the treasuries have kind of done their thing and that the equities are likely to rally through the rest of the day. Let's see if it ends up being a trend day in the ES or not, because it's, it could reverse hard. That's always a possibility. I guess I should point out too that the dollar has kind of been middling around, but looks like maybe it wants to take a move higher. And oil kind of just all over the place today. so it kind of feels to me like the macroeconomic factors have kind of all solidified fairly quickly, but the equity markets have not. And I suppose that would make sense, because I do feel that the equity market like really overreacted, right? So I guess we'll see.
That's my sign to go. So I don't know. I guess got a little distracted, but quiet end of the session, wasn't it? Okay, well, I got stuff to do today, so I'd still say it was a good session. I mean, for my sim trades worked out really well, right? I guess I had a trade on a live trade that I could have taken that I didn't. That would have been really great. It'd be back to break even right now, but I think I could have gotten something out of that. But I think overall I'm happy with having sat on my hands through all of this. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. The market's only going to get more interesting from here, I think. So in the meantime,